So I guess we'll just go through 2 Samuel, chapter 6 together. We'll see how far we go. Yeah, hopefully this can be an interactive session. Just I will go through it slowly, and I'll probably be bringing up First Chronicles quite a bit just to provide context. Yeah, and like whenever like you want to share stuff from your own reading and stuff, feel free. Just let's do it at the moment. Yeah, so it should be fun. Yeah, so like I've as I messaged on the group, like just thinking of it as three. Someone joined. Just thinking of it as three parts. Stuff to do with
the three questions that you put up.
Yeah.
The three players or.
Yeah. Just to help guide us. We can divide it and see each of these three parts. Maybe we'll just have a read through together. You can read up to verse 12. Then I'll read from verse 13 till the end, and then we can dissect it.
Okay, Roger. Okay, I started. The ark brought to Jerusalem. David again brought together all the able young men of Israel, 30,000. He and all his men went to Baal and Judah to bring up from the ark of God, which is called by name, the name of the Lord Almighty, who is enthroned between the cherubim on the ark. They set the ark of God on a new cart and brought it from the house of Amminadab, which was on the hill. Uzzah and Ahio, sons of Abinadab, were guiding the new cart with the ark of God on it, and Ahio was walking in front of it. David and all Israel were celebrating with all their might before the Lord, with castanets, harps, lyres, timbrels, sistrums, and cymbals. When they came to the threshing floor of Nikon, Uzzah reached out and took hold of the ark of God, because the oxen stumbled. The Lord's anger burned against Uzzah because of his irrelevant act. Therefore, God struck him down, and he died there beside the ark of God. Then David was angry because the Lord's wrath had broken out against Uzzah. And to this day, that place is called Perez Uzzah. David was afraid of the Lord that day and said, "How can the ark of the Lord ever come to me?" He will not willing to take the ark of the Lord to be with him in the city of David. He was not willing to take the ark of the Lord to be with him in the city of David. Instead, he took it to the house of Obadiah the Gittite. The ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obadiah the Gittite for 3 months, and the Lord blessed him and his entire household. Now, King David was told, "The Lord has blessed the house of Obadiah and everything he has, because of the ark of God." So David went to bring up the ark of God from the house of Obadiah to the city of David with rejoicing. Andy, can you go in the sitting room, please?
Verse 13. When those who were carrying the ark of the Lord had taken 6 steps, he sacrificed the bull and a fattened calf. Wearing a linen ephod, David was dancing before the Lord with all his might, while he and all Israel were bringing up the ark of the Lord with shouts and the sound of trumpets. As the ark of the Lord was entering the city of David, Michal, the daughter of Saul, watched from a window. And when she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she despised him in her heart. They brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place inside the tent that David had pitched for it. And David sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings before the Lord. After he had finished sacrificing the burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord Almighty. Then he gave a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, and a cake of raisins to each person in the whole crowd of Israelites, both men and women. And all the people went to their homes. When David returned home to bless his household, Michal, daughter of Saul, came out to meet him and said, "How the king of Israel has distinguished himself today, going around half naked in full view of the slave girls of his servants, as any vulgar fellow would." David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me rather than your father or anyone from his house when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people Israel. I will celebrate before the Lord. I will become even more undignified than this, and I will be humiliated in my own eyes. But by these slave girls you spoke of, I will be held in honor." And Michal, daughter of Saul, had no children to the day of her death. This is the word of God. So what from your reading, like you want to take the first question and like take us through like the context of the first part, like, and what led up to Uzzah being killed.
I think after comparing the three, what do we call this? The three books, the two books, Chronicles and Samuel, but what I can see there, like from their first attempt, they forgot to ask God how the method to take the ark.
Yeah.
I think they was just full with his emotion, and they just happy, and they just do it anyhow. And that's what happened. Because when I read from Chronicles 15, like David was particular with what God told him, all the house that they should carry out. Like the Levites should be there, they should consecrate themselves, and and all that. The first attempt they never do it. They just go and take it.
Yeah, we can see that straight from the first verse in First Chronicles 13. David conferred with each of his officers, commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds. And then verse 2 in First Chronicles 13, you can see the scripture. He asked the assembly if it seems good to you and if it is the will of the Lord our God. So he was asking them if it seems good to you rather than, so yeah, that was one of the first things. 10 minutes again. So, and then in verse 4, the whole assembly agreed to do this because it seemed right to all the people. But the key factor missing there is God. So already
to all other people except God. You're right. You just go with a majority. Majority counts.
So yeah, already it's off to a bad start. So what does David do? So in so we'll just be jumping back and forth. So in 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 2.
Mhm.
David arose and went with all the people who were with him from Baal Judah. So Baal Judah is another name for Kiriath Jearim, which is the word used in First Chronicles. So in verse 5,
Okay.
so verse 5 it says, so David assembled all Israel from the Shihor River in Egypt to Lebo Hamath. What was it? It said from the Shihor River. So the Shihor River is, you can see my cursor.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
mouse. Yeah, so the Shihor River
Yeah,
is, yeah, so it's near Egypt here. Shihor River, and then all the way to Lebo Hamath, which is right up here. So that's like all of Israel. So he sort of summoned all of Israel to come and get the ark. So you sort of get the picture of like the whole, but it's mainly just his army, not like all the men and women and everything. Like in the first verse, we talk about the commanders. So the commanders
yes,
of
like 30,000.
yeah. So so that's just giving context. You can see this next image.
Yeah, Kiriath Jearim. That guy did him Obed-Edom or something. He's not an Israelite.
I was reading up the context. Actually, like they say Gittite as
Yes, they
to
say those
sort
are
of
non-Israelite.
yes, to sort of yeah. Some scholars say that that would refer to him being from Gath, from Philistia, from Gath, like. But other scholars agree that he's actually a Levite, because if we take a look at,
yes, he was in front. He was in front of the tent, something there.
Yeah, so he is actually mentioned by name in First Chronicles.
Right,
Chronicles chapter 15. Chapter 15. So once David starts delegating the roles, he comes up in when the
he was
musicians
a gatekeeper.
and stuff. Yeah, gatekeeper. Yeah, verse 21 is mentioned there, Obed Edom, and I think and also in verse 18 you're saying gatekeeper, Obed Edom.
Yeah.
And he comes up again in verse 21 as someone who's playing the harp. So other scholars believe he's actually a Levite who came from Gath, who was living in Gath, and so they just call him a Gittite. But they sort of think of him as the same person as mentioned here, that he was actually a Levite. Anyway, so okay, so we know if we go back to the map, so we can see that Kiriath Jearim is close to Jerusalem. Maybe like, maybe like 10 kilometers. So yeah, like think of a 10-kilometer walkathon. That's probably like you walking from Kiriath Jearim to Jerusalem. So that's basically the context. So yeah, so they were to bring up from there the Ark of God, whose name is called whose name is called by the name the Lord of Hosts, who dwells between the cherubim. So they set the Ark of God on a new cart. Okay, so we have the introduction of this cart. Oh, by the way, do you know the story of why the Ark of the Covenant is in this place, is in Kiriath Jearim in the first place?
No.
Okay, so I'll just go.
I don't know.
Huh? You have some guess?
Maybe like maybe because of King Saul something.
Yeah,
No?
yeah. So like the Ark of the Covenant during King Saul's time is hardly mentioned. Like I think there was only one time where he asked for them to bring the Ark of the Covenant, but the main time where the Ark of the Covenant really came into play was actually before King Saul, during Samuel's time. So like, so you have like Moses, Joshua, and then the judges, and then the last judge was Samuel. So if you go back to First Samuel and you read from chapter 2 of how Samuel was called by God, and how Eli the priest, you know the story, how Eli the priest was rejected because his sons, like they were the priests, but his sons were doing all this other stuff that wasn't right.
They're committing sexual adultery, morality.
Yeah. I mean, that was part of the sin. Like there were other stuff they were doing as well, but it's sexual sin as well. And so Eli's house is rejected, and so you know how Eli died and his sons died. Deviation from here.
Okay, this will be a guess. I think they got cursed or something.
Yeah, they got cursed. Like they were rejected by God, and then they went to war. So Eli's sons also were in the army, and they took the Ark of the Covenant.
Okay.
They took the Ark of the Covenant, and God wasn't with them. And so, even though the Ark of the Covenant was there, they were defeated by the Philistines, and the Philistines captured the Ark of the Covenant. So,
so that is how it all connected.
Yeah, so they captured it, and then the Philistines thought, oh, they've taken the Ark of the Covenant, they've won, but they took it to one of their cities, and then they put it in front of their god, their idol, Dagon or something, and this huge statue, and like to symbolize that their god defeated the God of the Israelites. And then when they woke up, the head of the god was missing, like it had broken off, and and I think there was also like sickness in the, like people were being killed like mysteriously.
They got cursed.
They got cursed. And so what happened was they then shifted the Ark of the Covenant to another town, and then the same thing happened, and then to another town. So like for 7 months